Yes, folks, it's Tales from the Jails with John G. Sutton. I'm going to talk today about the infamous governor of Strangeways when I was there, Norman Brown. Let me tell you this, Norman Brown was a gentleman, but he was a gentleman of the old school. Are you with me? He had been, I believe he was a captain in the British Army in the Tank Corps. People say what happened to him. He was burnt in action. I believe it was the Korean War in the late 50s and the 50s, and he was commanding a tank group, and they got hit, and his tank caught fire, and he got badly burnt. So he's a war hero, yeah. And he was, as I say, he was a gentleman of the old school. And Norman liked to drink, you know, and he didn't like to drink on his own, so he used to go into the prison officers' club at Strangeways and drink with his buddies there, mainly the chief officers and principal officers. He'd drink with them, but he'd drink with anybody, drink with the lads, you know. He was a screws governor, there's no doubt about that. And Strangeways at the time was a real, what they call a screws jail. There were a few of them, Armley, Wandsworth, the Scrubs and Strangeways were all what they called screws jails. That is, they were run by the staff. There was no quarter given, shall we say. If you went the wrong way about dealing with the staff when you were a prisoner, then you were going to get uplifted and run down to D1, the block, where the school bully would be waiting for you. And the school bully used to just go into the cell the first. As soon as you got in the block, you'd go in the cell, go in your cell, shoot the bolt, shut the door behind him, just you and him. And he'd say something like, "You've got 10 seconds to hit me." He said, "And after that, I'm going to give you the best hiding you've ever had in your life." As a welcome to the block, so to speak, you know. And that was the school bully, otherwise known as Bootsy. But I mean, I only knew him as a fellow officer, you know. I mean, I obviously didn't come on the receiving end. Not of Bootsy. There's one or two staff did attack me. But anyway, I'm talking about Norman Brown today. Well, there was one time Norman went into the club probably about 12 o'clock and didn't come out till about 2:15, and he'd had a bit of a session in there, you know, with his good buddy, yeah, the chief officer. And he went back to it would be about February, I think, and the year would probably be 80, yeah. And it'd be about February, and he went into his office, and he had one of these gas heaters, you know, with a Caligas canister, and he kicked that up, lit that, got into his chair, drew the curtains, got into his chair behind his desk and fell asleep. I was working in the records office. I was the records officer for Strangeways, and it would be about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and he come charging into the office, my office, you know, with the records office. "You bastard Sutton, look what you've done now, you burnt my office down." He was covered in soot and filth and muck and all sorts of gunge. What he'd done was, he obviously had too many in the bar, lit the fire, drew the curtains, and the curtains were obviously hanging over the gas heater, and they'd ignited and set his office on fire. But I called immediately for security for the security unit to come down and check it out. I said, "You better come down. I think the governor's office is on fire." He had put it out by that time. He'd put it out, but it was a right mess. He'd wrecked his office, desk all over the place, everything smashed, curtains ripped down. He was a lad, was Norman Brown, I tell you. And, well, I mean, after he'd done that, he came sat in my chair, put his head in his hands, and I rang for the chief officer. I said, "You better come and have a look at the governor. He's in the records office." So he came down. He said, "Right, you've not seen this." nothing's happened, and he took Norman Brown away. I never said anything at the time because it wasn't in my best interest. It wasn't going to do any good, so I didn't say anything. I am now, yeah. And the details are in my next book, which, by the way, for all the people who have read my initial book, which is here, by the way, if you've not read it, yeah, there you are. The next book is, it's got the same cover, but the font here is not red, it's blue, and underneath it says Part 2, yeah. It's about the same length, around about 70-odd thousand words. Yeah, and it deals with that's one of the subjects. It deals with Norman Brown. But as I say, he was a real character. But if the prisoners got on the wrong side of him, well, at that time, I don't think they can do it now, but at that time, governors could actually take remission off you. So if you were thinking you'd get out in 6 months of a 12-month sentence, you could add 2 weeks to your sentence. You know, you lose 14 days remission, which kind of didn't endear him to the prisoners. You know, the prisoners definitely did not like Norman Brown. I thought he was amusing. He didn't like me at all. And if you watch that documentary Strangeways in episode 3, Screws, you'll see Norman Brown and the chief officer sitting down planning how to prosecute me. And the problem was, I mean, not only did they prefer the charges, they were the judge and jury, yeah. And needless to say, they charged me with something on the Secrets Act, appearing on television against the direct orders of the governor. I got invited to do BBC local regional television, and I went and did it as the company secretary and leader of the Prison Force Federation, which was a trade union I'd formed. And as I say, all that story's in my next book. So I think you can book it early if you have a word with Sean Atwood. Anyway, that's Norman Brown. I tell you, he was a real character, and if you've heard any stories about him and you would like to share them with me, I mean, I know quite a bit about Norman Brown, and I've put it in my book. But if you know any more, you hear anything, you know, let me know. I'd like to hear it. And now, folks, the Song Dinger. That's seen Larry the Goatherd. He's up on the hills now. He's got the goat under his arm, dancing away into the distance. Too late, Larry. I'm singing in a minute. You'll catch it if you don't go quick. Run faster. Hey, how you doing, Paula? Not heard you from a bit. Catherine, Bob de Bob Bob, all the rest of it. Yeah. Here we go. Let me see if I can get this up here.